Hello, and we are live. Hi, everyone. My name is Julia Holly. I'm excited about today's episodes with CityClips Live. And for those of you who aren't aware, we run a business newsletter focused on North Florida business and tech. And I'm excited to have Phuong Truong on today to talk about her background of entrepreneurship. And so she has an extensive background with economic development in Orlando and also restaurants and hospitality. I can't wait to talk about her story there, and also helping and supporting a digital marketing studio. So thank you so much for being on today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh no, don't worry. Nobody knows that part. No, it's okay. No, that's what's fun about this. I love doing this, having guests on to talk about, stories of resilience, growth, success, especially in the Tallahassee area. And so I wanted to learn more. I know we've been friends for a good amount of time now, thankfully through mutual friends at Domi. And we can circle back and talk about our involvement serving on the board at Domi too. So my family is a big fan of Robotos. So if I know I didn't mention the restaurant name before, but Phuong and her husband has helped the family business for a while, starting from one restaurant to now four. And so that's really impressive. And a lot of people in the restaurant world struggle with growth and just stick with one. So I think I would love to capture your insights on that. So tell me first, going back to Orlando, your involvement of economic development in Orlando.
Yeah, right after college, I decided to move to California, and I lived there for a little bit. But once I got back, it was kind of, just trying to figure out what to do with my marketing degree, and I had the opportunity to intern at the EDC, which is now OEP, but I worked there for about 4 years. So from 2004 to about 2009 is how long I've been there, and it was probably a team of like 36 people, but in that organization, you're almost small enough to be able to, walk across and learn from the CFO or talk to the COO, and just be so friendly and comfortable to be able to be at arm's length with any VP from every department. So I learned a lot from that. And then being involved in doing events, working with everybody, all the big business owners and even business leaders in Orlando. Like, just the exposure and just having that face-to-face interaction is really, I guess,
Valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I take that with me when I went to Tallahassee. So trying to figure out how to grow this new organization. A store of 2 at the time is when I showed up. So yeah,
Okay.
main principles in business is what helped, I think, Robotos grow, and I just applied that to anything else that I touched. So yeah.
That's great. And I wanted to talk about, I'm sure 2020 was a big challenge for you, like being in the restaurant industry. Everybody was impacted in that world. And so, how did you manage to survive? How did you guys adjust?
Just sitting on the edge and figuring out, okay, what's the new rule today? What I mean, is it as bad as they say it is? But every, policy or regulation that came out, 6 feet apart, you buy the stickers, the plexiglass, the mask. And I mean, I feel like it was getting so close to summer at the time too. That it made it really hard for people to wear a mask in the middle of the kitchen with all the heat. and then try to be 6 feet apart and being sensitive to every call in that I may have COVID. I took a test. It was a lot to take. And even prior to COVID, we've been resistant to getting on certain platforms like Uber Eats and DoorDash, because they take a huge chunk from our sales. But it kind of forced our hand to use those tools to stay alive, to keep people employed. You can stay at home. I mean, it's easier for us to not work, but all of our employees still have bills. Like, it didn't stop. They gave out PPP to business owners, but they didn't really give it to, your employees enough for them to survive. So
Mhm.
that kind of, I mean, we just navigated the best that we could. Just making sure our labor cost is, in line. I mean, that's always, the forefront for us is labor cost, food cost, um, and other fixed costs to keep it at a certain level and not overspend at that time. I mean, thankfully, the family, is not very lavish, really good at saving. So, it helps us in these times of emergencies and challenges. Yeah. But
Yeah. So,
it did
and that's,
kill, I would say, the store out in Lamont, which is a random store off the highway that his dad decided to, I don't know, like, he'll do random things when he's bored. So he decided this looked like a good location right off the highway. But once it opened and then COVID happened, it probably killed that store, and it never
Mm.
recovered. So
Yeah. I mean, you had to adjust, you pivoted, and you survived. And how many team members do you have to manage?
right now, so we had, at the time of COVID, we had, I want to say four, right? Two, three,
Wow.
or five, actually. And we had just signed the lease at Railroad in November. And then COVID happened in somewhere near January. And we put a pause on that because we thought, oh, okay, the landlord's going to be obviously aware why we shouldn't be so eager to open when we have so many rules that says we should be closed and only do takeout. But they were like, no, there's a lot of funding out there. Go figure it out. And our rent is still due.
Yeah.
So after a few months, we decided, okay, well, that's our answer. We just got to keep moving. So that kept us busy, at least if we weren't able to do a whole lot in the store, then we're on the side trying to build up and ready to open when hopefully COVID comes down. So yeah. But I think that closed in the earlier this year, and we're going to move that
Mm.
location over to a different side of town. So
Yeah. And the construction over here, not just COVID, but the construction around that area just did not help at
yeah,
all, I'm sure.
yeah. But I think it's good for that area. It needed to get cleaned up.
Yeah.
That railroad location was right next to a very sketchy bar or nightclub, I guess. And there was always, someone dying on the corner. It was kind of crazy. There's
Oh.
always police shootings,
Mm-hmm.
and we shared the parking lot with them. So
Yeah.
yeah, well, we had to
That's
leave,
good. Yeah.
yeah. And
Um,
so
but at what point did it become clear to y'all that you can actually start growing and adding more restaurants? Like what?
So the first store was 2008 on Pensacola Street. And I think it took a good, I don't know, about 2 weeks for people to really catch on, like, this concept really works in Tallahassee. And the lines were always, so I've heard, I wasn't there yet, was always out the door, and it kind of made the staff just so exhausted all day long. And it's a lot to do when you're just going 12 hours a day. So I think the Tennessee location, it was a pre-existing building, pre-existing restaurant. So it was an easy kind of turnaround, just some cosmetics and things like that. So they opened up the second location. They didn't intend to be that close to each other with two stores around campus, but the main location on Pensacola Street just need to be alleviated as far as traffic. So that's they ended up getting the second location. And then sometimes out of boredom, you know, when you're coasting, you're like, okay, so what else do I do? On a management level, everybody's in their place as far as operations, but what do, you know, with all the extra funding? You know, you got to grow or you spend it, you know, and the family's not into lavish living. So,
which is great. This is good.
Yeah. So they had the second location. They also had a different concept that I don't know if that was out of boredom, but it was an Asian wing shop also on Pensacola Street. And that was open for a little bit. It was pretty good. But after a while, I think the Pensacola Street, I would say demographic has changed since 2008. It's not thriving as it once started, you know, especially with railroad and the college side has built out near campus. And that's taken a lot of, you know,
the regulars, right?
Yeah, regulars over there. And then Pensacola Street kind of suffers a little bit, which seems like right now they're kind of going through regrowth. So hopefully it comes back. But
yeah, I was going to ask you too. Like, I feel like I'm really surprised that their like brand new restaurants keep coming here and opening up here. And so like competition is, I just don't know how a restaurant can survive in this tough market. And it's a college town, it's a sports town. So if sports doesn't do well, then of course it affects sales during sports season.
Yeah.
And
so it's affected us once Pensacola and Tennessee Street was full, and then the city, I don't know if it was FSU, decided to move their tailgate back to the other side on the opposite road. I don't know, what is that, Madison Social? When
right, like college town area.
So, football games now, it's not the same as it was back then, and a lot of business didn't survive that. And we've had growing pains too. You know, we made bad decisions. I mean, we had a wing concept that we tried and then sold. And then the Lamont store was also another probably bad decision on someone's part. And then in 2014, they signed a lease out in San Diego. So that was another, you know, kind of
risk. That's a big risk.
Yeah.
The restaurant scene is also another
coast like that. It took a toll on us, like mentally. But somehow we got through it, you know? And looking back, I'm like, wow, you could say you should have never done it, but I don't know. Once you sign that lease, they're never going to let you out. So thankfully, we sold that right before COVID too. So we back from San Diego right on time.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, it's admirable. It's courageous to take the risks that your family chose to do in certain ways. And now, I mean, going back to what I was asking as far as like now going to 4 stores, right? I mean, it was 5 at the time, I think. And then you mentioned you closed down Lamont. But yeah, so 4, which is still really impressive for a local Tallahassee business. Because we see franchises all the time. They're owned by corporate. Starbucks, you know, corporate is an example. Probably 99% of them are corporate owned. So yeah, like, how did you guys get to the point where now, okay, let's just focus on the local market. We can still add a few more restaurants here.
I think we realized going all the way to San Diego an out of market, we almost thought like, oh, okay, you could cut and paste a Robotos concept in any college town and it'll work. And that was not true for San Diego because we were right near SDSU, but you're also in a very major city where food options are everywhere. And I don't think this concept would even work in Orlando because when you think of Asian food, you're going to want to go to something a little bit more authentic. And there's areas for those. So when you're in San Diego, you go to Convoy Street or you go to,
Their version of Chinatown, maybe.
yeah, or Asia Town, I guess.
Yeah.
There's very niche areas in every city that you go to for Korean food, for barbecue, for all sorts of different types of food. So that's why Tallahassee works, because we're kind of a melting pot. There's no like fixed area of where you get any type of food. So yeah, we've learned our lesson there to stay with Tallahassee and kind of just hit all the four corners around Capitol Circle. So after this one, on the other side of town near the airport opens up, I think that should be it for us in Tallahassee. So.
Wow. I mean, that's awesome. And so when you said the demographic was kind of changing and the, customer behavior over there on Pensacola, is that part of the reason why you opened in Mahan? Like on the restaurant on Mahan, which my family was super happy.
Yes. Yeah. Mahan was like a blessing because at the time we also had signed San Diego. And in the family, they were like, why are we doing two new restaurants in completely different cities? So between, me, Jeff, his brother, and his wife at the time, and his dad, it was like between the five of us, we were having to split ourselves to try to make all of this work all at the same time. So San Diego opened in September, and I think Mahan opened in November. And his dad had to open that while the four of us were in San Diego. And I had just had Hallie in October. So he called the day after, like, hey, somebody needs to come back because Mahan turned out to be a great location and San Diego turned out to be a terrible location. So yeah, it made no sense that the four of us were sitting at a dead store when we needed to come back and help Mahan.
Yeah.
It is today. It's probably our number one performing store. And that's a store that we've like, you know what? It does so well. We're not doing any delivery platforms out of that location.
Oh, wow.
Do it. Yeah. It's so
it's a great location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody eats at a certain time and goes, it just closes at the right time. It's easy to staff and it's super efficient. Whereas on college side of town, granted, it's like young and, vibrant, it's also very unpredictable. And it does hurt us in the summer times, the winter and spring break. It goes from here to here, and those are never fun. And not only just sales, but also staffing, So very cautious about mixing too many college students in there because the moment those breaks happen, you're going to lose like 30% of your staff. And to try to, you don't have anybody saved in the background to come fill in either, so
yeah,
those aren't fun. Before we had to deal with it on 3 stores because it was Railroad, Pensacola, and Tennessee. So now we're just down to 2. So Railroad closing was kind of a blessing, and just spreading that store somewhere else.
So just because I know in our personal conversations, you also help with like managing, keeping the finances in order. I love that because with marketing, there's that skill set, but financials being in order, I think that's also been a huge value that you've provided to the family, the team. What would you say, like, as practical tips to restaurant owners? Because I think they struggle with that. Watching like award-winning chefs
Mhm.
go through their stories and say, "Oh yeah, I had to close that restaurant down. It was a successful award-winning restaurant, but because they weren't great with finances
Yeah.
and money, what would you say is great
I
tips for?"
I think when you're a small business owner, you have a tendency to look at the biggest player in your industry and try to want to copy that. But they have, financial resources that small business owners don't have, and um, when I first came, and it might have been just the time where we were just punching in time cards still. So, and then taking a stack of those time cards, sending it to the accountant, and she spits out payroll for you. And then we're handing out paper checks, and when it came
And
for,
written out orders.
yes, yeah. And when it came to two stores, that seemed okay. Um, but when even two stores with the growth that it was going, it was still too much of a headache, even though we were all locals. No one wants to drive and meet the accountant at one spot, have her pick up the time card, 3 days later, meet her up again, come get the checks, and then split those checks between and drive it to those stores, right? Then, your employees are like, okay, what day or time is this going to show up? And it's like, oh, it always shows up on Friday, but when? It could be from 12 to 4 p.m., you might get your paycheck, right? And that's just never fun. And even when it came to the POS system, when they first did their orders, it was like a piece of paper and you would just circle what they wanted and you would hand it over to the cook. I mean, think about doing that 200 times a day. Like, it's not efficient. Um, so, in part, Jeff, we came from working at Kobe, which is a very popular Osaka type place in Orlando. Um, and just looking at tier one flats, like, just think of those two concepts coming together, and that's how Robotos is born. But just Googling, like, there's got to be a better way is the mindset. And it doesn't have to be super expensive either. When I looked at accounting, obviously the main software out there at the time was QuickBooks, and Intuit, and even payroll softwares. It could be hundreds of dollars that you're paying for, and do you want to pay for that every 2 weeks? All of those things will add up. And so every time I'm like searching something, it's like put it in time card tracking and free, and then you see what pops up. So um, I I searched up payroll services at very nominal for small business. It doesn't take a whole lot of fees. Every year, it gives employees online tracking. They can just log in and look at their pay stubs without us having to print them all the time. And just requiring everybody to have a bank account when they're onboarded with us at the very time. I mean, you think about the times of our transition to paper trail to everything electronic, that
Yeah.
we were a part of that change, and trying to get employees to be like, this is the way, and this is why. And now it's just like, you couldn't think of handing a paper check ever, it's just,
Yeah. I think that's what was also what you both brought, which is making it more efficient operations wise, and then using tech tools. Like, that's the other thing that local restaurants could work on is how
yeah.
can they make it easier for the customer, easier for the team to run the business, and then like think of like, oh, okay, you need to be in growth mode. Like,
Yeah.
how can we do this
Yeah.
10x
Yeah.
versus 2x, right?
I don't even know if it's out of growth mode or out of frustration of having to like drive from one part from one store to another to say like, this is not what I want to do. I mean, think about, okay, sure, you do it on payroll day, like 2 times a month, but for how long do you do it? This cannot be the solution for 10 years, right? Or else
Mm-mm.
you'll never grow if you're always driving around checks, so you have to find solutions that are not too expensive, because if you find the most expensive software, at some point you're not going to want to use it anymore. and you realize how much it's eating into your bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some solutions are way too complicated to learn. So something user friendly, right, and has a great support system. So I think we're both we're fans of Wave apps. I was so happy to find out that you also use that.
I found that during COVID, you know.
Maybe that's why maybe I saw an ad during COVID too.
Yeah, I
But
don't know what it
I
was,
don't even
but
remember.
you know, we're living in
Yeah.
an era where software only gets better for the small end user, you know, and you don't have to pay thousands of dollars to get the job done anymore. So
Mm-hmm. And okay, just in terms
I'm
of
willing
like,
to use tools though too and learn it.
right, right.
I've learned Wave, you know, over time, and it's just made things so much easier. So
Yeah, same here. I don't have to ask clients to pay me because it sends reminders. Like just that alone is huge. Um, but yeah, no, okay. So let's talk a little bit too. Like you and Jeff have found a great system now. Like I remember him saying, like he used to be at the restaurant constantly, all the time, a lot of hours. Now it's at a great coasting mode. I would say, like in a healthy way, in a sense, it's healthy. Like it's things are profitable. I'll like to say that too. Like that's a great sign, and restaurants are doing well. Great Google reviews. How have you managed to grow? Do you feel like you spent more on the quality of service and the food, or did you spend a lot of dollars on marketing? I don't think you guys do.
no, I mean, I would say my marketing skills, even background, is just cover the basics, be consistent, um, and offer what you say you're going to offer. You know, I'd rather, I, when it comes to marketing, can always oversell your product, you know, make it super pretty in a photo or whatever. And it's just like one of those McDonald's ads, right? Like it looks pretty. And then you get it and you're like, wow, it didn't look like the picture at all, you know? So
Yeah.
that's why we don't tend to spend our time with that. I mean, it's just customer experience and pricing. From since COVID, you've seen food prices in restaurants go up so much, but yet the quality is not there. So we've decided we're not doing that. You know, we're in a fast casual concept, you know, and in that price point, it's got to be under $15. I mean, I'd say under $14 at this point because you can now go to a sit down and get the same price. Why would they? Why would anybody spend their time doing it on a fast casual? You priced yourself out of that niche, you know. So we're just we just decided that we're not going to do that. We're going
Thank
to
you.
do it.
And that's why we're still like a lot of loyal customers, including our family. Like that's our go-to, one of our backups. And we appreciate that. Like, even though it's justifiably so, and everybody does, but it does make sense. Like you provide consistent, the flavors, the menu items are simple and it's just easy. Like the whole experience is always easy. And then you got a restaurant across the street. I'm just not gonna name any, but I'm just saying like similar price points almost, but there's a lot more. And it's a sit down and it's like, I don't want to spend the time to do that. And I don't want to spend more money. So like fast casual is really the modern day living for the typical family.
Yeah.
And so anyways, yeah, I mean, there's a good chunk of the market in Tallahassee for that.
Yeah, that's why Chipotle works so well. There's why Kava also works well, you know. It's sauces made from scratch, rice made daily, uh, veggies and chicken or your protein cut daily, you know. So I don't know how to prepare, and maybe coming from an Asian background, like I don't know how to eat any other way, you know. So yeah.
Yeah. And I know, I mean, the 30 minutes is like flying by so quick, but I wanted to make sure we touch on, I know you're working in many areas too to support Laconic Digital. Let me go ahead and just pull them up. This is a cool, it's a small team based out of Orlando, right? But they provide services nationwide and globally?
They haven't. There are times where we'll get a project that is outside the U.S., but it all just kind of depends. If the numbers make sense for us to be out there.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. But look at the videos. I'll just let it run. But so he primarily he does video, right? And he does events, conference events, right? Yep. That's kind of his like forte. Ooh, look at this.
Yeah.
Oh, looks like demo videos too.
Yeah, corporate videos, events that need video coverage is kind of where they kind of started. And, with AI now, they have decided to create a new business that we're starting to work on.
Yeah, to get ready. Like that's a smart strategic move too. I'm sure people still want. I mean, I don't think right now, even though the quality of AI seems to be good, you still need the expertise behind producing the concepts and putting the story together and stuff.
Right, because you still have to know how to use those AI softwares to have anything pump out on the other side. So not every marketing executive is going to know that. And we just hope to be kind of a solution for it. So we're not sticking to the old school, bring the camera and, stage and lighting and all that. I mean, obviously events will still need some event coverage, but they're trying to move into a different space at this point.
Cool. And we can go ahead and just touch a little bit about so we met through a mutual friend via Domi contacts. And then I think we were just having a conversation about like, what can we do? And you showed interest in providing feedback on some things that, as an ecosystem, where Tallahassee could potentially be, because you have your background with economic development, and Domi's a part of that puzzle. So I'm so glad when I said, hey, would you be interested in serving on the board of Domi, you were interested and available. So let me just, if you were to touch a little bit on like why you decided, besides the fact that we're also friends, but why did you have an interest in supporting Domi?
Since Robotos just felt like it was in a good place as far as spending my time 8 hours a day, what do I do if, things are being managed by software, and I don't need to be in the store as much? What do I do with that time? I can't stop learning. So it was just a great opportunity, and I threw my hat in the ring. And I didn't know it was going to come back, because between the EDC and 10 to 15 years of, small business restaurant, I know what I could actually contribute to Domi. But it just seemed like a small enough team and a good way to network with everybody else on the board. I mean, I came from Orlando, and then being in Tallahassee, it was a huge difference because I didn't have any friends or even family here outside of Jeff. So I needed to find something for myself. And I think Domi was a good place to start. So we'll hopefully see how that I'm happy to be just the opportunity and just be in front of other people with the help of Domi.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's same here.
Story of Domi itself. So there's a reason why they should thrive, So.
Yeah, no, and that's part of the reason why I'm a big little, I guess you could say, cheerleader or ambassador, because it has provided a community to me. Like there's no way I would have heard about some other solutions and resources in town. And just, appreciate the original members, the community, the board members, and then even getting a chance to be connected to someone like you. I don't think I would have met you otherwise. And so that's where I feel like there's a lot of value there that people need to take advantage of. And especially if they're starting a brand new business, or just considering a side hustle, or also who wants to connect with other community members, like where to start. I mean, I feel like Domi is that great place to start.
Any co-working space is a great place for people who want to. And I'm not a big networking person. So just going into a space, it's just like going into a library and just meeting somebody random, right? Like we're all working, and we're in different fields. And I started off at the Pod off of Magnolia, which I drove by there the other day, and I don't think it's there anymore. But that's how I met Laura Lee, also a previous member and a recent cohort of Domi. And that's how we met. So
Yeah.
those connections do matter. You don't realize how valuable they are until it happens. So I can't imagine not knowing you or Laura Lee, you know? So I think it came at the right time because COVID happened. People weren't going outside. I never networked in Tallahassee, you know, so I'm like, ugh. So it kind of helped me appreciate Tallahassee more, just by knowing other people. Because you can go to any major city, it looks great, but if you don't know anybody, it's just not as rewarding. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true. I love that point too. Like just being in an environment where people will just kind of naturally connect, and it's not a forced networking event.
Yeah, it's not networking for 1 hour and you're like, "Oh, what did I get out of it?" You know, like a 5-minute conversation with somebody I may not know too much about, but if you're seeing them on a daily basis because you're working and they're working on a schedule and you're passing through the hallways or whatever, you know, like that small talk, it's just, yeah, that office experience does matter. You know, the face-to-face matters.
Yeah, yeah. And people are so willing to connect people. Like in the case of Laura Lee, she kept, before we even met, she kept saying, "I really want you to meet my friend." And like multiple times, I was like, "Okay, I will."
Yeah.
And then we finally did. So anyways, I just wanted to like wrap it up, even though I know you and I can talk for a while now, but to respect your time, I wanted to see like if you were to conclude with words of advice, maybe it's where do you see Tallahassee 5 years from now, like in a positive, like if you were to, um, from coming from Orlando and just being, you also travel, you have the perspective of economic growth. Like, what would you like to see happen in about 5 to 10 years?
I I've seen it grow from the last 15 years, I want to say. And I think it's growing for the better, right? But I think things are still very expensive. I think small business owners, especially in restaurant, should really evaluate their price and product and make sure it's something that they'd be willing to pay for, you know. Because you'll go out and you'll spend money and you'll figure out like, wow, that wasn't really worth it. There's no point in pricing something super high and not getting enough like repetition in a customer. So if I price my Robotos meal at $20 a meal and you take a family of 4 out, you'll probably do it once every 2 months. You know, with all the choices out there, you might visit Roboto itself, you know, in your 2 to 3 month cycle. You know, I think the number of visits matter if you really want to survive this. You can't just be like, oh, well, I just have to take the $15 now and then we'll wait 3 months later and see if they show back up. You know, I mean, everybody's dollar, it needs to be kind of recognized that you have to bring more to the table before you price your product, you know?
Yeah, some of the local places that might have like nice ambiance, but the food and the pricing, I'm just like, I'd rather just go to Orlando, or if I'm going to pay for that experience, I'll go to a big city and experience that and get my money's worth.
Right.
And then you got other things competing now, Factor Meals. They have really good food that deliver. I'll settle for Trader Joe's.
There's just so
And
many
I'll stick with
options.
my fast casuals, you know?
Yeah, there's so many options out there. So you have to really think about, why are you starting your business? Why do you have this concept? Why are you pricing it the way you are? And are you pricing it to survive? Or are you just pricing it to make money? You know, because the make money part is just, it can only last for so long with that mindset. You know, you're always going to be making money, but how long is the run, right? So we want to be in it for the right reasons. We love food, but we are not overpaying for food. That, to be honest, like that, our mindset of going out is, what did I get? You know, and am I coming again? And you only get one. Sometimes you only get one or two chances with a customer, and that's why our sweet spot of 10 to, and being under $15 a meal is good for us, is because if it is a bad meal one time, you're not going to really harp on the fact that it was under $15. It could just be a bad day or something like that. If we were at $30, you'll never come back. It's hard to forgive.
Yeah. No, I mean, which is I mean, a lot of folks in town have a lot to learn from y'all. And thank you for taking the time to, tell us more about yourself. And I know you guys don't do too much as far as promoting yourselves.
Yeah, we're just in the background. Yeah.
Which is still really admirable. And so I appreciate you taking the time to tell us your story. So thank you so much, Phuong.
Yeah. I hope it was helpful to anybody who's listening.
Yeah. So I will go ahead and pull us back. And for those of you who catch this episode, we would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from potential guests. If you want to feature your business in North Florida, go reach out to me and subscribe for free at cityclips.net. Thank you so much, guys.